Hi you guys, Ginger Cook here with another fun story time. And today I will be painting a pair of really cute kittens while I tell you the story of my scary encounter with Bigfoot when I was up in Oregon. And you know, you hear tales about Bigfoot, well, wait till you hear mine. And we're going to tell you about some other things too in regard to how we got to have that encounter. But remember, this is not a tutorial. I will be painting a painting that's already been sold, a part of a promotion we ran last December in 2023. So these are not to be, these are not to be prints of. I mean, these are all copyrighted items. We don't post anybody would paint them. They will not be posted in our Facebook club, because again, this is just sort of a fun story time. And if you see the way I paint the paintings, that might give you an idea how you might paint some things. I think anybody can learn by watching somebody else paint, and that you may pick up a hit or two. But again, I say again, this is not a tutorial. We have two painting tutorials. Last Monday, for instance, was just a couple days ago. We did a step-by-step beginner Mardi Gras mask, and we have over 700 tutorials in our online art school, paintingwithginger.com, where they're all step-by-step tutorials. All right, I'm on an 8x10 canvas. I have traced on my kittens and put the white on my eyes. So just so you know, if you were wondering where the story started, it's starting now. Mm-hmm. So when I first met Cinnamon's dad, he had a GMC motorhome, and we didn't really travel many places in it because it wasn't all that practical. We did go a few places with it, and then what we did was we drove it out to California. On our first trip, we took our motorhome and some friends, not our motorhome, but our Airstream travel trailer, which was Colby's. And when we came back from that trip, sometime along the way of our travels, those were when motorhomes were first happening. I remember we were out at a campground and people had motorhomes, and they were really neat. The idea of a motorhome with people, there were campers, but the motorhome was just sort of an idea in somebody's mind. So, and we thought they were kind of neat, but we weren't, didn't think a lot more of it than that. But at one point, we were out in California, and we ran across the first GMC motorhomes. And they were cut above anything else that was on the market. And I mean, they were just the most marvelous machines. Neither Cinnamon's dad, Colby, and I could believe how cool these things were. Absolutely fell in love. No question about it. Fell in love, and just couldn't. They were expensive. We couldn't figure out how we could get one. We certainly didn't have the money to just go out and buy it. But we had to, you know how you see something and you want it just in the worst way? You just can't believe how much you want it. One of those experiences, yeah? So, and that was what happened to us. We wanted one of those GMC motorhomes. So we just couldn't figure out how to get it. That's what I mean. So, we thought, we'll finance it. So we drove down to this dealership in Denver that had them, okay? I think we saw one at a home show. I think that's how we first saw them. And we went to the dealership, and I had never heard of credit or financing. Everybody in our family just bought stuff. Nobody financed anything. I mean, I didn't even know what that meant, right? Didn't know you could finance a car or motorhome. No clue. I just knew I wanted that motorhome. Yes and yes. And so the guy was very nice. The salesman was all excited for us that he wanted, because these had just come on the market. They had there was one color we kind of really liked, and we couldn't quite get that. They didn't have that one, but we could. They're all these beautiful colors, and they were just so neat. And I'll tell you why in a minute. They were so fabulous. And they looked like something out of 2001 Space Odyssey. They were so cool. So as it turned out, he tried to explain to us. I said, well, we want to find this. He did something called a credit check. For those of you who are not from this country or maybe don't know what that is, that's where they take your social security number, and apparently everything you've ever done in your whole little life is somewhere on a computer somewhere, even back then. And you have a score about how well you pay your debt back. That's what your credit is. How well you have been known to pay your debts back. All right? So we didn't have a score because we'd never paid any debts. We'd never borrowed any money. Our house was paid for by the trust fund. The bank paid it. So the trust fund had great credit. Well, they didn't. They just bought the house and made the payments. I guess they had great credit. You could say that, right? But we personally had never bought anything. And I'll tell you something I learned later from selling cars was that if you don't have any credit, you've got to buy something little and work your way up. You don't buy the most expensive thing in the showroom. They won't let you, okay? And even if you're rich, that doesn't make any difference. I remember, for instance, they're not going to, on credit, sell something to somebody from another country. They're just not going to do that, yeah? So, and they certainly weren't going to sell anything to us. And then we wanted to trade in. We had this Dodge Charger, and we wanted to put that as a down payment because it was wasn't that old. I don't know. We know. Again, you're talking about two ignorant people. The guys they didn't laugh us out of the showroom. They were very sincere. And I said, listen, but I can pay for this. I have a trust fund. They'll make the payments and everything. Well, that wasn't cutting it with anybody either. You know what I mean? Because, again, we had no trust fund, no assets we could put up, like a house which was owned by the trust fund. I didn't own the house. The trust fund owned it, right? We had absolutely no way we could prove that we could pay for this thing. And then the car that we had that we thought we could trade in, the guy, Colby, did I tell you he was an inventor of sorts? And say that kind of loosely. And he had made a metal rack that he had screwed into the top of the car that would, and then when you unfold it, it was all like out of, I don't know what you call that, John, when there's just metal, that's like a piece of metal on two sides, kind of a
rail? Like
a rail, yeah. And it had a rail that actually would slide out, and one rail fit into another, and you could slide it off that, because the back of that Dodge Charger sloped. It had a slope, and you could slide the rail down past the window onto the ground, and then you could drive the snowmobile up on top of the car and then pull the rail up. I mean, it was nifty. We didn't have any way to store a trailer. We lived in a motorhome. There was no parking. Not a motorhome, but a condominium, and there was no parking, little tiny parking lot. So even if we'd had a trailer, and back in those days, there wasn't like now, you would just, if I had to have a trailer and I couldn't park one, I would just go to the local storage lot, and I would, I'd pay the storage fee, and I'd park a trailer. But in Aspen in those days, Aspen, Colorado, there was nowhere to do that. There's nowhere to store it. And so Colby had made this, where we had the car, and he could then drive the motorhome up on the car, top of the car. But the thing of it is that when you trade a car, they don't really want it all full of holes, just
something about that.
I mean, Colby was shocked. He was so offended. They don't like my rack. Well, it's not really a matter of like. I don't think you can take this too personally. I just don't think that. I mean, I don't know why it didn't occur to him that wasn't a good trade, because it was a wonderful car and all this wonderful stuff, and it had new snow tires, and he'd put the studs in himself. We didn't used to buy the studded tires. We had a kit, and we would put the studs in the tires ourselves in the winter. Probably that wasn't a good selling point either. Okay.
No.
The things that we thought were great selling points, the guy just didn't laugh us out of the showroom. That's all I can tell you. Didn't laugh us out. But, I mean, we were not to be deterred. So I said, so I understand. We really want this motorhome. I know we can, if there were payments on it, and he told us what the payments would be. I think they were around $500–600 a month, something like that. Okay? I'm sure we can make the payments. We can make the payments. He said, uh-huh. And again, not impressed, right, that we can make the payments. That's good, but so far not impressed, okay? So then I said, well, what would we have to have? And he says, well, what you have to have is a cosigner. I said, the bank can't be the cosigner? No. The bank would cosign? No. But I have a trust fund? Yes. And that doesn't count? No. Oh. So then we had to figure out how we were going to get I mean, the only friend I had that was, really rich there in Aspen, I had some rich friends, but the one friend I had that we were really close to, my friend Ernest Capelli, he had married my best friend, from church, and he was, I don't know, you got to think Cinnamon was 3 years old, so I was like 26, and Linda was about 26, and Ernst was like about 40, seemed ancient. You get comparison, it seemed old, right? And, he wasn't born in this country, so he wasn't, I don't think he even believed in financing any of the stuff. They didn't do it in Austria, where he was from. Sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger, And he's the one that had the great feet. We had that conversation one time about that he had beautiful feet. And I said, oh, gosh, what are you talking about? Every feet are feet. He says, no, I have great feet. And turned out he did. He's that guy. So anyhow, so I thought, well, maybe Ernst would finance it for us. We're good for it. This is a technicality. Not understanding what I had asked him to do. I really didn't understand. This goes beyond, hey, I need a favor, right? I want you to commit to this expensive motorhome. And that kind of stuff, right? And I think it would be neat if you did. Well, no, he just, I didn't understand that this was a big ask. I guess that's the thing, it was a big ask. So, anyhow, I approached him about it, and he says, well, what would I said, I really want, he says, I'll tell you what. He says, I've got this property down in Basalt that's got all these houses on it, and if you'll sell that for me, if you find me a buyer for that, I'll give you a $1 million commission. Now, are you listening? I'll give you a $1 million commission, and then you can buy the motorhome. And I said, but I don't need $1 million. I have a trust fund. I wasn't $1 million. I don't know. I don't need I just need the motorhome. I don't want to sell your property in Basalt. I just want and I'm not a licensed realtor either, but he trusts me. I don't want to do that. I just want you to co-sign on my deal here, so I can get this nifty motorhome. Okay. And I mean, I gotta hand it to him, because he really had the patience of Job, honestly. Because he looked at me, and he's trying to understand. He said, well, I said, listen, we're good for it. He says, yeah, I know. But, they're going to ask a lot of questions from me. And again, I didn't understand what that meant either. I really didn't. And I didn't understand what I was asking him to put his whole financial, whatever was in his finances was on the line for him doing this. I mean, I really was so clueless. And it just shows you, and he said, and before I had gone to him for the financing, I had got on the phone with banks I knew and people, and I spent a couple of weeks calling people, trying to figure out how I could get the money for this thing, right? And so he was, in fact, that's why he offered. He was so impressed with all the work I was going to try to get this motorhome, that he offered me He says that you can sell the property and then I'll give you the money. No, 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 no. No. We don't want to do that. We just want the motorhome. Do you understand? This is not hard to grasp, right? We just want the motorhome. Don't want the $1 million. So anyhow, he ended up co-signing. And yeah, right? So that's a wow. That's a big wow, yes? And I mean, it's a big wow for me. I mean, I can't believe he did it, right?
I can't either.
He did it. And then I said, well, look, we're going to make a new will, and if anything happens to us, you'll get the motorhome. We'll leave it to you in the will, besides getting it paid off. And we took a life insurance out and all that. We'll pay off the motorhome, and we'll give it to you in the will. You can have it. So he was in the will. And he went ahead and he co-signed for this motorhome, which, again, was an amazing big ask. And he did it. And he was one of those secretive people, didn't want anybody to know anything about his business, what he had or didn't have, that kind of thing. So anybody wanting to find out about his business was a big, I don't know. To this day, I'm so glad he did it. It was the nicest thing. We ended up moving to California shortly after we got the motorhome. And so I really never saw him after that, except for when we paid it off. But I mean, and let him know it had been paid off. But I mean, that was just, I guess, John, that was just extraordinary for us, what he did.
I mean, he was a total stranger to you, right?
Well, we were good friends. We'd known each other for years,
but I mean,
right?
But not blood relatives, nothing like that.
No. We just knew each other from church, and we spent a lot of time together. We went skiing together and did stuff, and we ate dinner together. And they spent a lot of time at our house, not so much on theirs. In America, in general. Now, I'm sorry if you think I'm generalizing, because I'm gonna. Okay, so I'm just doing it now. Somebody says, well, that's not true of everybody. Well, this is true. But in general, all right, so you're with me, in general, right? In the States, it is not uncommon for when Americans buy, say, rental property, they keep the best property for themselves and rent the other stuff out. Okay?
That's true.
That's what we do. But other people from other countries think that's the dumbest thing ever. They don't do that. Promise you, they're not doing that. No. Are you kidding me? They wouldn't dream of doing that. What they're going to do is rent out the best properties and live in the dump. And practically on bread and water, and then that's how they become millionaires, right? So his very best houses were down in Basalt, which was about an hour out of between Aspen and Glenwood Springs, and when he married Linda, because he was a lot older than her, and when he married her, he offered her the opportunity to live in one of the good houses because he was madly in love with her, and he gave her that option that she could do that. The thing of it was is that then she was down with no friends. So he had a little, he had a trailer up there, kind of, and some property up in Aspen. It wasn't much, but he had that, and so that they ended up, both agreeing to sell the property in Basalt, and they ended up living in Aspen, but kind of in this real dumpy place. So it wasn't really fit for company. It was practically a trailer that in very poor condition, and he had some rental property on that piece too. Rented that out, and so basically that just wasn't his thing. Okay. So anyway, so you got that. So he did that for us, and then. So the motorhome was great, and so the first thing we did when we got it was we were so excited, we took a trip up to Seattle to show my parents our new motorhome. And I mean, it was a marvelous trip, and so we're driving up there. We didn't tell them we were coming. We thought we'd surprise them.
That's always good to do.
You know, it isn't, John, but we we thought we'd surprise them and they'd be so thrilled to see us. Wouldn't you think?
You would
You know, I
think.
mean, if Cinnamon showed up at my door now it's, well, it depends on why she came, but well,
So see?
but mostly it would be okay, right? Oh, I'm such a bad mommy. Anyway, so when we drive up to this motorhome, of course, it's not a familiar vehicle. No one's hardly ever seen them. People kept stopping to ask us. I know I guess the first trip we took, we went to Florida with it, and it was during the gas shortage. And we were getting ready to leave. We'd rented our house out, and to the nitty gritty dirt band, and then we a couple of members of them, and then rented our condo out, and I remember before we left town, I said, better check your driver's license, make sure it's not expired, because you know, and it turned out that both of our driver's licenses were expired. So we both had to go down and take the test, and so of course Colby went down and took the test and passed immediately. It's no big. He's like John, very similar in personality, those two. And I went down, of course, and flunked it, and I had like 3 questions wrong. So I had to take the motorhome. I had to take the test when we got on the road. So we were somewhere in Colorado, and I went ahead and stopped in. I think it was Grand Junction, and took the test there. And what was funny was that the driving part of the test, I had the same questions as the other test I'd just taken. So the written part I passed like champ, and then I had to take the driving part. And he was so interested in the motorhome that he didn't care how I drove. He just wanted a ride in the motorhome.
So basically, you got a free pass.
Yeah, so we both had our driver's license, and we went going down to Florida, and that was sort of fun. We had the motorhome. But then the next trip we took was to go see my parents. So I remember knocking on the door of our house, and my dad came to the door, and he looks at me and goes, "Yes," like I'm the Fuller Brush man or something. You guys remember who the Fuller Brush people were?
Yeah.
They used to come around and sell you brushes and things like that, because there was no Walmart. This was before Walmart. I know, there was actually a time in the world that there was no Walmart.
No delivery. Are you kidding?
No delivery.
No Amazon?
No Amazon, no Walmart, no delivery. This was just
You might as well,
back in the, you might as well lived in a cave with Bam Bam, right?
Really?
I mean, honestly, that's how tough things were. And so anyway, they, where was I with this? So, I mean, he had no idea who I was. I'm standing there, and so I can see that the light of recognition has not hit his eyes, right? I can see that. So then I say, "Hello, do I have parents that live at this house?" And he goes, "I beg your pardon?" And I said, "Hi, I just wondered, I think I may have some parents living at this house." And he goes, "I beg your pardon?" And then I'm thinking, okay, all righty then, right? Not that, you know, so in fact, it's even more than that. I am so offended. I mean, I can't tell you how offended I am. He's he's a judge, still working as a judge. He's semi-retired, but he still was working. He's absolutely clueless to who I am. There's no idea. So my mother comes to the door because she hears the ruckus. And she always called him Wootsy. Wootsy, she'd say. "Oh,
Whoopsie?
Wootsy. Oh, Wootsy. Oh, Wootsy. Who is at the door, darling? Really, Wootsy, darling, who's there?" And so then I say the same thing to her, and she says, "Oh, darling, it's Ginger. Ginger's here. Oh, my goodness, Ginger's here." Yeah?
Making progress.
Making progress. And he goes, it takes a while. He says, "Oh, Ginger, wonderful to see you. Oh my gosh." And he's pretty embarrassed because he's trying to recover from that burp, right? And not recovering too well, as far as I'm concerned. And so Anyway, I'm having fun with my background here. It makes sense in a little while. But some things have to be lighter before they can be something else. This was
that's so
probably would
profound.
have done just as well to have just done a white background and just gone from there, but it's all right. So then we had a nice time, but I tell you what, that stung for years. I never got over the fact that he didn't know who I was. I mean, I can't tell you that for years that really bothered me. It never occurred to me it was beginning Alzheimer's. You know what I mean?
Well, we didn't know about that.
Well, no, and I just didn't. It didn't occur to me, and so I want to just say this much. Sometimes some of my stories have little lessons in them, right?
Ooh, yes they do.
You know, and one of the things that we all might want to rethink is whether or not we're giving people the benefit of the doubt. Because your first thing is to think, they hate me, it's the worst thing, you know what I mean? You just, rather than think the worst possible scenario thing of what's going on, right? You might consider giving people the benefit of the doubt. That's all I'm saying, right? Yes, John?
Oh, absolutely. And
it's hard to do because you want to go to this dark place. Maybe it's from your own insecurities, but you're going, he hates me. That's how much I mean to him. Out of sight, out of mind. Now, in all fairness, I've probably seen him since I've been married to Colby and Cinnamon. And Cinnamon, well, we're married to Colby, and Cinnamon was born 5 years after we were married. I've probably seen him 4 times after the wedding. Maybe 4 or 5 times, not very much. So, but we had photos and Christmas cards and phone calls and stuff, but we didn't see each other that much. Yeah. So, anyway, we had an interesting visit, and the first thing I noticed about, and again, when you're upset, it shows physically. Oh, the guy by the name of Wayne Dyer, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's passed away, but he used to be on PBS, and he wrote the book The Erroneous Zones. And I really liked him. He's a psychologist. And there had been some studies done that he was able to verify in some way that particularly with back pain, a lot of times with back pain, something's really upset you. If you're in a motorcycle accident and you get hit by a truck and you have back pain, that's different. But this miscellaneous back pain, and then of course my mother believed in the theories. I mean, she absolutely believed the idea that my adopted mother, Punky, that if you were sick, somebody had upset you, that you didn't get sick just by accident. And so she used to say things like, well, darling, who upset you? And of course, you can't say, what's your first clue, lady? Are you looked in the mirror recently? Do you think you might have upset me? Because as a kid, you certainly can't say that, can you, right? Maybe you want to, maybe you're thinking it, but no, you're not allowed to say stuff like that. So then you're sitting there going, oh, nobody, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because,
who could I possibly be upset with?
Well, I'm just saying that John, you just weren't allowed to go there with that kind of thinking. You couldn't tell that person that they upset you, right?
No, you should not do that.
No. So, anyhow, so back to the motorhome and Bigfoot. Then we'll get to the story about Bigfoot, but you've got to get the whole background of the motorhome and all this stuff, right? So let me tell you for just a second why this GMC motorhome was such a big deal. At the time when they came out with that, GMC never met, General Motors and GMC, they never made another motorhome. That was the only one they ever made. They were not in the motorhome business. So they just sort of made a motorhome the way they thought they ought to be. They're designers, and they weren't. I doubt if they looked at how another one was done. They were all pretty new, right, in the business, right? The motorhomes, they were pretty new, pretty new item, right? And so the motorhome had self-leveling. For you know how if you park on ground and it's tippy, right, like this, right? It had little airbags by the wheels, and it would level it out so that you were level. It had an air compressor and airbags and stuff, so that it would level out. And you're going, no kidding. I'm going, yeah, no kidding. It did. Had all that, right? And then it had an air conditioner, and which was very rare, and had air conditioner, and it had a generator, which was really amazing too. Okay, had air conditioner and generator, and then it had so what else? It had air conditioner. Oh, it had a microwave.
A microwave?
It had a microwave and an oven and a gas stove top, and it was almost as big as my kitchen, as far as being able to cook on it.
I think huge.
Well, it was 23 feet long. It wasn't huge, but they compacted it all in, and of course the way they are today too is that around the dinette set that you could fold that down and make it into seats, and then see what else so it slept. And then the back, there was a bed in the back, a double bed in the back, and then there was a big back window, but you could sit back there, and had a television. Cinnamon could lie back there when we traveled, and watch cartoons and stuff, VCR or something like that, whatever it had. She could watch cartoons. I mean, this was and let's see what else it had. It had a self-leveling air conditioner, microwave. Oh, and then they designed it so that when you drove, your hot water automatically heated up through the engine of the car, so that when you had to drive it, right? You had to drive it. You had hot water, and then it had the separate. It had a separate deal for the wastewater as far as the sewage. You could dump it together, you could dump it separately. So there was a drip system that they had out you could buy, but Colby made it. Of course he did. And so we had a special drip system that took the water from the shower and the sink and stuff, and it would put it out. He could route it out where it dripped very gently on the tailpipes, and just made steam. So we never had to dump the gray water, hardly ever. Okay. So it had that.
Smart.
Yeah. It had two big captain's chairs in the front and kind of up on a dais, and very comfortable big chairs, and we had a CB radio. This was before cell phones. I know, it's hard to imagine. There was a time before cell phones, but
These
yeah.
are back in the Stone Ages.
I know, Stone Age technology, but again, it had all that. Okay. And let's see, what else did it have that was honestly, John, it was like the technology, like nobody had anything like it, and it got really good gas mileage because it was kind of sleek. And so you could really, honestly, it was just so amazing, all the things that it did. And then it would pull our horse trailer later. It pulled our horse trailer. And we could park it anywhere. Like, for instance, if we were traveling, we didn't have to worry about finding a campground. If we could find someplace with the drive-in movie, we could, the drive-in movie people didn't mind if we spent the night in it, because and then we'd drive out the next day. So we could go to the movies without needing a babysitter. Remember, we got a little kid, right? And
Life is good.
I mean, I'm telling you, it was the technology. Anybody that saw that back then would have wanted one. You know, it was just so it was just really so fabulous. Yeah. So anyway, we had this motorhome, and so we took trips in it. We went places, and on the way back from seeing my parents up there in Seattle and not being recognized and feeling put out of sorts, one of the things that happened to me was my back went out. Big time.
Ow.
Big time, really big time. It just, I could barely move, and went to a chiropractor. And I know now that the only time I've had my back go out in my life, I can count it, were the times that I was interacting with my parents. Right? Just, yeah, like we came back from a trip, my sister and I, when I was about 14, we came back from a trip to Yellowstone, and we stopped off in Yakima and met my mom there and dad. And again, my back went out. I just remember it because of such pain, I couldn't move. And then, of course, on that drive up to Seattle, when I got there, and I had spent 10 minutes with them, and my back started to go out, okay? And so that was, oh, I gotta put some wine out. So now, if I start to feel like my back hurting before, you know, sometimes you're doing something and you start to feel a twinge in your back, I ask myself, who am I mad at? What am I upset about? And then, like, for instance, I know that back when I was married to George, and I'd come in, and we had a cleaning lady, and she would clean the kitchen, and then the next day, right, the same day maybe, after she was there, he would make spaghetti on the stove and have spaghetti spattered all over the kitchen, make a huge mess, and that's the kind of stuff. Then I'd clean it up and I'd be hacked off, right? Well, rightly so, girls, rightly so, but, and thinking, oh, God, I'm the only one that cleans this kitchen. Not grateful for the fact that I had a maid that did it some of the time. It just, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, this sort of anger that you get when you feel people have kind of screwed up around you, that kind of thing. So anyhow, now I ask myself, who are you mad at? And what are you mad about? And sometimes it's just a reaction from the old kitchen cleaning thing I've got going, kind of a program I run about where, in my mind, about that. Now, then I'll sit there and think about, you know, I'm not going down to the river and washing these things in the Ganges, so to speak, right? And I've got a nice kitchen. There's running water in the house, and you know, life is good. And aren't I lucky to have a kitchen to wash the dishes in? I really, once I do that, the pain all stops, right? And sometimes sometimes it's not as simple as that. I remember one time I broke my wrist. This one, you can kind of see the scar right up here. See the scar? And it came all the way back like that and broke it in like dozens of pieces. And again, I was married to George and making the bed, thinking I was the only one that ever made the bed, and I tripped on the bed covers and flipped over on my back, and this hand got out from underneath somehow and broke all the way back. The arm broke, and so I mean that's another story. But I mean that's the kind of stuff where you got to ask yourself who you're mad at, right? But and then there was the third time that I remember with my parents. My dad was in his 90s, and my mother wanted me to come up for his 90th birthday, and or something like that, and I didn't want to come. And and suddenly my back went out and I couldn't move. And I said, gosh, I'd come, but I got a bad back. There's no way I could possibly sit on the airplane. I could say that and not lie. Could have just made it up, right? How would they have known the difference, right? Wouldn't have. But I'm just saying that sometimes you might want to check that yourself. I so was interesting when Dyer said it because I thought, oh, I don't know, that seems a little far-fetched. But it wasn't too far-fetched, friends. Not too far-fetched. So anyhow, back to the motorhome. So we saw the family, got to see, then my parents got to see the motorhome, which was neat, and we kind of showed that off. And then we headed down the coast to, at least we thought we'd take it all the way down one from Seattle, go to California, and then drive across was our plan. And so again, there was, when you're driving down there, there was time when there just weren't campgrounds everywhere, you guys. I know this is hard to believe. There was a time in this world where just campgrounds weren't everywhere. There were some KOAs were still around. They weren't as prevalent as they are now. And so anyhow, let's see what I put in my black. Painting my painting as I'm sitting there talking to you. So we decided to park the motorhome. There was just an old logging road when we got to Oregon on the coast, and we just pulled off this dirt road, and then we just kept driving up. It was dark, pretty close to dark. And then we saw another kind of a log road that went off after that, right? And so the big plan, what Colby did was he backed into this place where we were. He backed in, so we could just drive right out. Wouldn't have to turn around or something. And you drive right out. And if something, if there was a problem in the middle of the night, or bad people or something like that, we could drive out. And we also had a skylight that that opened up, and you could climb up on the roof, stand on the chair and climb up on the roof. And so he could get up on there, and he could see if if there was any danger to be worried about, that kind of thing. So all right, so we're parked in there, and we make dinner, and we get to cook in there and everything, and we're all fine. And then Cinnamon's gone to bed, and we're going to bed, and it's really dark. There's nothing, and it's very quiet. And I'm one of those people. John will tell you once I decide to go to sleep, I can go to sleep in a few minutes. I'm out like a lot, and it's been a long day. I'm out like a rock. And Colby's listening. It's just dead silence in the woods, and he's listening. And there's this noise, like let's see if I can make it somehow. And then it stops. Like, maybe, and just like somebody's outside against the motorhome. Okay? And so he's looking, and he's quiet, and he listens, and he looks out the window and listens, and nothing. And then about 20 minutes later, maybe 10, here's this noise. And you're out in the middle of Oregon. You've heard the Bigfoot stories. You've heard those, right? I mean, right? You know that there's stories about this stuff. People make this stuff up. And so he's getting a little worried, and he hears it again, and he can't place the sound. And again, he's just slightly worried. And then a long time, nothing happens. And he thinks maybe that he'll know when he's looking, and he's thinking maybe what he needs to do is to get in the car, just start the engine up of the motorhome, and get the heck out of there. He doesn't know what it is. All right. No clue. And it's making these terrible noises. And he's getting really worried. And understandably so, right? So then he hears it again. And he turns on the light. He looks around, and remember, we're sharing the bed, and there's a TV guide has fallen down in the crack between kind of the wall, part of the wall of the bed and the back window of where we are. And every once in a while, my foot twitches, and it rattles the paper. So yes, we had a Bigfoot. It was just my Bigfoot that was causing the scare. But it was big time. I mean, he was very seriously on his way out the door. Do you know what I'm saying? He was just seconds from abandoning ship and driving us off, convinced of the motorhome. But
No, I like the Bigfoot story.
you know, that's our, you know, that is at least the Bigfoot story. Yes and yes. So anyhow.
Surprised you didn't kick you out.
Yeah, huh? Well, the thing about that motorhome was we used it a lot. When we were building our house in California, we lived in the motorhome while we built the house, and we built the house ourselves. And the only time we hired anybody was for the to do the let's see, we hired somebody to do the actual studs, you know, on the outside. We had a company that came out and did that, and they were really, it was a nice family. And we got that they had 3 kids, and they were close to Cinnamon's age. Cinnamon's like 6 by that time. And we're like I say, we had become good friends. And they told us the story about how somebody had broken into their house, and you guys are not going to believe this. I hardly believed it myself, right? But apparently back, the house that they were renting, the family that lived there before was, I don't know, it was a lady or something, and she was friends with this guy who had ended up getting in trouble with the law and going to prison. House ended up for rent. So this man, I don't know if he escaped from prison or when he got out of prison or what his dealio was, but he came in, he got out. I think he escaped from prison. He got out and he went, and of course, he went to, he broke into their house. Now, their 3 children were very interesting. What was interesting to me about them, right, their 3 kids, was that they, even though they all had a bedroom, they all, sometimes at night, they just all sleep in the same room, just because they were family and stuff like that. So that they all slept, the kids all slept in the same room. So when he first broke into the house, apparently he had looked in all the rooms. And so I'm just getting all paint here like that. He looked in all the rooms, and let's see, I'm just trying to still get my colors and talk to you. So, and nobody was there. And then he went into the kids' room, and the littlest girl, I think, was on a sleeping bag on the floor. That's where she was. And he picked her up and carried her. He carried her outside of the house, and she was sound asleep, and he had her. She was like 5, I think. He had picked her up, and she screamed. She woke up and she screamed before he could put his hand over her mouth. And her dad heard it. And for some reason, I don't know if it was like parents' instinct, you know, you wonder about that. Her dad heard it. He was not wearing any clothes. I guess he slept in the nude, whatever his deal was. And he got up, raced out, because they looked out their window and saw the guy holding their kid in the front yard. Yeah, huh? And
who was this person?
He was a criminal. He'd come by to do harm to this girl that had lived in the house, and she had moved, and he took advantage of the fact there were these kids sleeping, and he just kidnapped one of them. That's what he did. Okay. And yeah, can you imagine?
No.
So Dad's running down the street. I think he has a baseball bat. He's running down the street chasing the guy who has his kids screaming. And the man drops the child and runs. And so Dad gets his kid back, which was a good thing. And then, I know it's just unbelievable, isn't it? And the police come and they eventually catch him. And it was a crime of, what would you say, opportunity. The other thing that was interesting about that family, right? You're going, no way. And I'm going, oh yeah, no way. The other thing that was really interesting about that family was that his mother had invented rice-a-roni.
The real rice-a-roni?
The real rice-a-roni. His mother had invented the real rice-a-roni. And Golden Grain, which made rice, had a contest. And they offered a sewing machine to anybody that won if they could come up with a kind of a rice and noodle recipe. And this rice-a-roni recipe had been in her family for years. Okay. And so so she won, and she got the sewing machine. And for those of you who are not from the States and may not know this, but the rice-a-roni is like in what, 12 different flavors?
Yeah, tons.
You know, and what it is rice and noodles, and they shape the rice like noodles, and you brown the noodles, and then you cook the rice all in a pan and everything. That was their family. That was their family recipe.
So she sold out for a sewing machine.
Well, you know what I mean? You know, and they made, that was the prize. And there was a time in America where companies offered prizes for jingles or all kinds of things, but they offered prizes. If you had contests, all kinds of food companies did this. That was one of the things that they tended to do. And a good movie to watch, if you haven't seen it, is The Prize Collector. It's with Woody Harrelson. I think it's of Ohio or some state. Prize Collector. If you guys haven't seen that, true story. Really good one, about this lady that was just a masterful prize winner. She won everything when she entered contests. She'd make the jingles up, and it's a really good story. Just saying, right? So anyway, yeah. So You'd think the kid probably never felt safe again because she was already sleeping in the room with her brother and sister, right, on the floor. And so, feeling totally safe because they were in the house. That's why people get dogs, you know that?
Yep.
There's a tendency, I've read somewhere, where burglars are much less likely to go after a family that, break into a house that has a dog if there's one down the street that doesn't have one. You hear me kind of raving about dogs and stuff, but still, that's it's a truism, right? If they'd had a dog, it would have woken the family up, and it just wouldn't have been worth breaking in the house, right? I don't know. That's just interesting. You hear all these, people say, "Well, do you think that happened to you? Guess what happened to me?" It's one of those kinds of stories, for sure. And but we lived in this motorhome while they were building the house, and we were building the house. They were there for a while, and we did. Colby and I worked on it together. And one day, I was on the phone with a friend, and I hear this scream, this huge, terrible wailing cry. And what was interesting about it, that it's a sound you don't forget. And you think, well, how is that possible? What do you mean the sound you don't forget? Well, just the night before, on the news, there had been a riot near Camp Pendleton in Carlsbad, California, where we were not far from there, so we got the local news. And some people had gotten into a riot, and somebody was taking baseball bats and bopping other people with them. Okay? And this one guy got hit on the head with this baseball bat, and then they had filmed it. The news had filmed it, and he made this sound, this wailing sound, like nothing I had ever heard in my entire life. This is wailing sound that he had made, and that very sound was coming out of Colby's mouth, Cinema's dad. When I was on the phone, I heard this scream, and it was just this wail. I mean, my first thought was, oh no, something hasn't gone well with the project, and he's throwing another temper tantrum. Okay? And let me give you an example of that. John would appreciate this, right? When we were laying out the house, because Colby had drawn the plans for it, we were laying it out, with string and sticks and stuff. And I had the measuring tape. And every time we measured, we got a different measurement. Made
I don't understand how that could possibly be.
Colby crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, we kept getting a different measurement. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And he'd measure, and I'd go over in the same spot, and I'd measure it, and I'd get something else. We were using this big tape measure. Couldn't figure out what was going on, really. I mean, that was his thing. What is going on, right? What could possibly be going on? What is going on here? Well, it turned out that do you have a measuring tape? I can show you. I'll show you what I was doing and what made him so crazy. All right, here we go. Well, the kind of tape that we had, see, this is the kind of tape I was used to, like this. But the kind of tape we had a thing that stuck out from the end, like a piece of extra metal.
A tab.
A tab thing.
That you could hold on to.
That you could hold on to.
So you get an accurate measurement.
So I was counting that as 1. Okay?
So that was your 0 point out here, even though it said 0 over here.
Yes.
Okay.
That was my 0 point, so that's why we...
And you asked why I never asked you to measure anything.
That was Wow,
Yeah.
you guys, right? That was my zero. Yeah, well, it was my 0 point. Yes.
That was your 0 point.
Yeah. Huh?
-1 was your 0.
Yeah, -1. Is that what it is? -1. Yeah,
Yep.
but whatever it was, that was my 0, and apparently that's not everybody's 0. So that's why we kept getting different. We kept getting different measurements. Okay. I mean, people are so picky, right? I mean, come on, you guys.
Yeah, what's an inch among friends? Come on.
So anyway, so that's the kind of thing. So then, and Cinnamon's dad has had a temper. He got better as he got older, and I don't know what you'd call it, the testosterone levels started getting lower, but he had a temper. So when he was out there screaming and yelling and carrying on like a crazy person and howling, I think howl is probably the right word for what happened there. When he's out there howling, I'm thinking, oh no, he's had a bad day. Something's gone wrong with the project. And then I go outside, and what's happened was he was attaching. We had these big windows, and it's a big tall windows, the 2-story house, and we had this long board, 2x4, and it was against the house, and it was clamped to the side of the house, and he didn't realize that that was the only thing supporting it. He needed the clamp for something, and he walked off with the clamp, and he's walking away going, so he's like here, and the clamp does like that, just and knocks him. But this is a big long 2x4 because it was, like the long one, and then it's our short was the long one, and it hits him on the top of the head, on the skull. Okay. And like I say, he's howling like a crazy person. And I'm not making fun. I'm just saying he was howling, and then I'm thinking, oh man, he's hurt now. Got to go to the doctor. So much for this project. And so we go to the doctor, and Cinnamon's dad's a real smart ass. He just is. He always has been. He's a smart ass. He's sort of funny, but he's fun. And they have to shave his head to get to get to the wound, and he's very well aware of doctors just charging outrageous prices for just any old thing, right? And he says to the doctor, he says, just make sure you're shaving it. I don't want to pay for a coiffure. I don't know. I thought it was right. It's just so funny. I mean, he was very funny, right? And so moving on with the stories about the motorhome in Colby, because these are just kind of reminiscing now, memory lane with some of this stuff, right? We did a lot of horseback riding, and we pulled, besides carrying a boat on top of our motorhome at one point, the way he did the snowmobile with his car. He had something very similar that he did with our. We had one of those Jacques Cousteau kind of type rubber boats. One of those things.
One of the Zodiacs.
Like a Zodiac. That's what we had, Zodiac, because you could deflate it, and it was lightweight. We again didn't have a trailer, but we could then carry it with us on the motorhome. All right. So then we figured out that we could do that, and so again it pulled a 4-horse trailer. We had the boat with us sometimes, and a lot of times we were just traveling. I mean, we're just traveling, okay? And so one time we were come back from a competitive trail ride, which is another story about our trail riding days, and we were coming across Highway 8 before we got to Phoenix, out there between Yuma and Phoenix, I think. And there's some smoke coming up between the seats, yeah, of the motorhome. You know where the dinette seats are? There's some smoke. And so I casually mentioned that, by the way, we're on fire. In case you're interested, I think we're on fire. And on that point, the fire in the motorhome, I'm going to have to pause and dry this.
Oh, cliffhanger again.
I think that's probably dry enough to get some other paints over. So it's interesting about fires. When I was younger, my mother was a big believer in fire drills. Did you ever have a fire drill at your house?
No, we just had a talk, once in a while. If fire happens, this is what we do. No big deal.
We had fire drills at our house.
Of course you did.
Because my parents had lost a complete house to fire.
Well,
and so they had a
makes
little bit
sense.
more personally involved in the outcome of something catching on fire, right?
That would make sense.
So, but other than that, I never gave it a thought, right? So I'm in the kitchen, in the condo in Aspen. It's just this little tiny kitchen. I mean, it's smaller than most people's bathrooms, yes? And like I say, I'm in the kitchen, and there we go. That's what I want, just some sort of this color. Put some brown in it. And I've got a fire on the stove. Seriously, stove's on fire. I kid you not, stove's on fire. So I remember, it was the burner, I think. It was the burner, not the whole stove. It's just the burner on top of the... It's on fire. And so I remember thinking, okay, so what do I do when there's a fire? You have to put the fire out, and you don't use water because it's burning. So I'm thinking about this to myself. Thought, right? What do I know about fires? That's what I know. Absolutely all I know, but I know that, right? I'm pretty sure that that's true. So anyhow, I grab a lid and put it on top of my burner, because I had those things underneath where your pan is. There's that little, what is it? The little round tray underneath each burner. Some grease or something had got in there and caught on fire. And it was too big. And then I went rummaging through the kitchen, looking for the right size, the right size lid. There had to be, some were too big. It was like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The fire's getting worse, and I'm looking for lids, right? And finally, Colby walks by and said, "The kitchen's on fire." And he looks at me and he said, "What are you doing?" And he just gets the fire extinguisher and puts it out. And that was another story. That's a whole mess when people do that. But anyway, that's what he did. That's how he put it out. But that's what I mean. When there's a fire, sometimes you have seconds to think of the right thing to do. So what we did was, when our motorhome caught on fire, after my first, and Colby managed to pull over on the side of the road so we could stop. The first thing I did was grab Cinnamon in my purse and get outside. You know, get the money and the kid, right? That was my thought. Colby's in there. And he has to take the seats apart, the dinette seats, and he cushions off and all that, and opens up there's storage under each one of those seats. There's a box, and it's like a toolbox, and he has stuff in there. And the motorhome has caught fire underneath, under the oil and stuff had come up from the, splashed up over the years and the bottom of the motorhome was not metal, it was wood. GMC had not done. I know you're going, what? I'm going, yeah. It was wood. Okay. So when it caught on fire, right? The bottom of the motorhome was burning. We did have a fire extinguisher in the motorhome, and he used that, and he put out the fire. But what caused the fire was not solved. Does that make sense, John? In other words, yes, we had a fire, but that doesn't help you. So the whole way, so he takes a pie pan, and there's a big hole like the size of this painting there, where the fires come through. If it reached the gas tank, it exploded. That's all she wrote, right? That's all she wrote, dear friends. So anyhow, he takes this pie pan and he nails it over the hole, and then he gives me a squirter bottle and says, keep squirting this till we get back. Sit there and squirt the water on this until we get back home, which was like another 4 or 5 hours, right? Till we got back to the house, back to the ranch, which was what we did. Now, then when we got back, what he ended up doing was, when he got back, what he ended up doing was he covered the whole bottom of the motorhome in metal so that it couldn't catch fire, and replaced the part that had gotten overheated and all that. I don't know if I ever told you that story or not, John.
I don't think so.
But you think you've seen everything, right? But that was what we call eventful, right? And we tried to tell we tried to tell GMC, other people had that motorhome. We thought other people should know, but it kind of fell on deaf ears to anybody else we were talking to. So we did a lot of traveling with that motorhome. We were asking a lot of it to pull a 4-horse trailer. It was never designed to do that. We went through a couple of transmissions, I think, on it, and that kind of thing. And boy, the tires, we went through tires, but we saw so much of the United States when Cinnamon was little. We went to all these different competitive trail rides all over the country, particularly when we were into that. And Cinnamon was very lucky as a child. She got to, we went everywhere. So that was one of the neat things about having it, I think, about our motorhome. Some of this is dried up enough where I can do all of that. But when we quit the competitive, trail riding and stuff, we quit some of that. We quit that. The motorhome, really for the most part, just unfortunately sat there. And it was down it was sort of just, it was just down on our property. We had like 10 acres, and it was just down, you know, just not doing much of anything. Just down, and then we ended up in a sort of a financial crisis where some of our stocks had failed, and we needed money. So we got the idea, I got the idea that, you know what we could do? It's one of those things. You know what we could do? John knows that, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those, I'm thinking, right? And everybody goes, oh God, she's thinking, what could we do, right? Well, you know what we could do, okay, is we could rent the motorhome out. Very expensive to live in Southern California, apartments and everything like that. It costs mucho dinero, right? But if we rented out the motorhome, and then we boarded some horses on our property, we could put a lot of our expenses into zero, right? We just kind of neutralize some of the expenses that were going out. We'd kind of pay for our horses to still eat. All of that stuff, right? So, it did seem like a good idea at the time.
It certainly does.
And
did Kobe go for it?
Yeah, she did. But the thing, it was just totally illegal.
Well, you know, this is the minor part of your life.
So that you had to word it right. Okay? I didn't want to advertise motorhome. That doesn't sound very appealing, does it?
No.
Didn't want to do that. On the other hand, so we ended up calling it a guest appendage. I put an ad in the paper calling guest appendage.
Guest appendage. Now, you know, if I was reading that, I would just call to say, what is that?
Well, some people have bigger vocabulary, I guess, than you, because I got calls. And I got a call from, because I couldn't advertise motorhome to live in, right? And of course I explained right away it was motorhome, okay? And so that sort of, you know, limited the traffic, you know, that might have been interested, right? And, but as it turned out, there was this guy named Norman who was a chauffeur for some rich people in La Jolla. And he had a cat, and he was an artist. And the idea of, you know, living in the country and, you know, where you could have his cat, that seemed to appeal to him, right? So when he came, now the drawback to this was we didn't have any sewer arrangements for the motorhome, right? It was just down there on the property somewhere by the horses. So what we said to Norman was that he could have this for a deal. What we wanted him to do was feed the horses, all right? And I had boarders by that time, so then Cinnamon was kind of doing it, but she was very unreliable. We knew that had to change, okay? And
how old was she?
Cinnamon was 16.
Well, of course she's unreliable. That's a given.
She had no interest really in that, right? So we made a deal, and so Norman had to take. And this is we're really terrible people, but in a nice way. So we had a porta potty in the motorhome, okay? where instead of we changed out the toilet, so it just goes in a little tank underneath it, right, like a little suitcase. And then Norman had to then climb the hill with the tank to the porta potty and dump the contents in our septic tank. Okay? Feed our horses, and for that he got extremely cheap rent. And you're going, boy, Ginger, it better have been cheap. But he got to paint, and he loved the fact that I was an artist, and he was one of my biggest fans as far as artwork. He loved my artwork. And I'm sorry to say I can't reciprocate. Norman's artwork was OMG, right? Well, that shows you what happens with, you know, years of drugs. I don't know what caused this artwork to be what it was. But so first off, let me tell you about Norman's cats. Norman had come from New York City, and he had two of the most, they were kind of no hair, long and skinny with long necks. They looked like something out of a bad cartoon. Talking the ugliest cats, I mean, I love cats, and cats love me, but Norman's cats were god awful.
They were hit with the ugly stick.
Oh my Lord, they were terrible looking cats. And, you know, it's one of those things with face only a mother could love. I mean, you know, Mom would have, you know, signed adoption papers after seeing them, right? So, I know you're going, really? Yeah. So, and then there was this big weeping willow tree that I myself had planted, and by this time, it was nice and big, right? And Norman, where's all my paints here? Norman would sit under the willow tree and he'd paint, and he'd pray with each, as he painted. He would pray very sincerely that each brushstroke was like the will of God or something, right? And what he would paint, I wish I still had one of Norman's paintings, because he had they were like a 2-year-old did them, okay? I mean, seriously, you guys, they were like a 2-year-old had painted them, okay? And yeah, like a 2-year-old had done them. And I don't know, maybe a bit, and like little snails and stuff like that, and then he'd prey on them. And he'd go off on weekends when he wasn't working for the rich people that he was a chauffeur for. He'd go try and sell them.
Did he ever sell any?
I don't think so. He got rejected out of all kinds of galleries in La Jolla, because that's where he was down there mostly. And and then the other thing that Norman's job was that he kind of worked around the property a little bit. And before that, he got to live very cheaply in the motorhome, pay very little rent. And I remember him saying that by this time, I was not married to Colby. Colby was gone, and I was with George, I think.
And you still kept Norman.
So Colby, yeah, he was there in between the divorces. But no, maybe it was Colby. So I remember him. No, it was George. This is a George story. Mm-hmm. So George, you know, was asking why it took so long for him to get stuff done, right? And he said if he spent a lot of time just going around the property looking for the tools that George had left and put them away. No surprise there, right?
Nope.
So he got along pretty well with the people that we rented to. I had four horse boarders, the 4 ladies that rented, you know, kept their horses with me, and that was nice, right? And like I say, Norman got along fairly well with them. Not so much with Cinnamon and her friends. Cinnamon thought he was too creepy for words and couldn't believe that we even had him on the property. Cinnamon has some words about him. I'm just saying that it did sort of help. That's the only way I can put it. Just sort of help cover the bills, right? When Norman was there, and it kind of made it life. By this time, I was working, didn't have time to play with the, you know, the boarders, horses and stuff. So the fact that he was willing to, you know, kind of step in, and you know, we had someone that would do that. That made a big difference. Yes. So. Anyhow, Norman, one day, Norman got it into his head to call up our boarders. I don't know if he was high, probably was high, right? He had to be high to do something like this. He called up the people that were boarding their horses with us, each one, and he said, if I can see if I can tell this with a straight face, right? He said, hi, this is Norman. You know, you're boarding your horses with Ginger, right? Yeah. And he goes, no, seriously, this is exactly what he did, you guys, and I know you're hearing. Da-da-da-da-da-da, your horse is dead.
He sang that to them?
He sang that to him. Da-da-da-da-da-da, your horse is dead. Just, I know you're going, no, he didn't, Ginger, he just didn't. And I'm going, oh, yeah, he did. It's exactly what he did.
What was he?
It was funny, and then he was just kidding. He thought it was hilarious. I don't know. Like when we were kids, we would call up somebody we got a hold of our own phone. We'd call up somebody and go, hello, this is, we'd answer the phone, hello, Wilkins Luggage Department, the old bag isn't here. Stuff like that, you know, that kind of jokes. You do that when you're a kid, a little kid, teenager, stuff like that. You don't do that ever. Yes. When, well, you just don't do stuff like that, right?
Not when it's your client.
With the client. And OMG, were people mad. Those women, because they're all women, they were so mad about that.
I don't understand why.
I mean, because it didn't, the I'm just kidding thing didn't come for a little bit. And it gave them a lot. Well, you could imagine. You guys can imagine, can't you?
I can.
You know what that must have been like for
yeah,
those people. You know. I know. I know. You're thinking, why would anybody do that? But he did, and then. And he didn't understand why we were all so mad at him about it, right? And we couldn't really afford to fire him. I know that sounds kind of weak, but it's just, all right.
Did the people keep their horses with you?
I did a bunch of apologizing, and I managed to, they couldn't afford to move him, really. It wasn't like they had any really other place to go that would have been all that great if they had to move them. So yeah, so they did keep them, but let's see, I've got some, gonna get some colors out here. I'm saving the eyes for last, you guys. You're wondering, when's she ever gonna do the eyes? I'm saving that for last, sort of the pièce de résistance. So, Norman was a problem, and but you know, I don't know another person that would have been realistically speaking, would have been willing to carry their sewage up the hill, kind of thing, right? I mean, honestly, you
true.
guys. I mean, not a lot of people would have wanted to do that, yes?
Well, rent was the right price.
So it was the right price, plus he worked for us. So when we decided to move to Texas and sell the house, the lady that bought it was, it's just she and her husband. They didn't have any kids, and the lady that bought it, she wanted. I told her a little bit about Norman, and we sold Norman with the house and the motorhome.
I don't think you can do that.
Colby wanted Cinnamon's dad. Colby wanted the motorhome back because he got it in the divorce. He just hadn't taken it yet, right? He wanted the motorhome back, so we had to buy Norman a trailer to live in, slightly nicer. And I remember when we'd made a date for Colby to pick the motorhome up, and it was kind of a big deal because the divorce wasn't all that pleasant. And so we told Norman, said, we're going to get you the trailer, but you've got to get the motorhome ready for Colby to pick up. And then when Colby came, the motorhome was a hot mess. He hadn't done anything. And Colby was just furious with him and said, I understand, we had a date and the motorhome was supposed to be ready. And Norman says to Colby, he goes, I had a party to go to, and I don't get invited to parties often, and parties are important, Colby. And he said it was such childlike, like you were asking a 5, I mean, honestly, it's like he'd done so many drugs back when he was younger in New York, I think.
It's pickled the brain.
That his brain was
much defied.
Not bouncing on the same wavelength as some others, people, okay? But Colby got the motorhome back and fixed it up, and he lived in it for a long time. After the divorce, he was able to live in it. So when you think about it, and from what I heard from later, how Norman did with the new people, they were glad to have somebody because she and her husband were, made a lot of money and they worked, and they needed the help. But on the other hand, Norman was a little much. They didn't want any of his wonderful artwork. He was happy to share, right? Like that, you're going to love my paintings, and they didn't get the preying on each. Norman's the religion of art, his art religion. Didn't get that, and they basically didn't get the idea that when they wanted something done, it got done, and Norman might or might not do it. You just, okay. So back when Colby and I were living at the property in California, right? We had some macadamia nut trees, and we had met this older couple in our congregation church, and they had asked if they could. Put some beehives out on our property because we had like 4 acres, and we said sure. They said we wouldn't have to do anything. They would give us some honey every once in a while, and they would just put the hives out there. And we said this guy was a chiropractor, and we said sure, right, that they could do that. And then they died. And there was nobody to come take care of the bees, and they were just there. So when George got to the property, and he and I, and Colby had moved out, and George had moved in, kind of thing. George thought it would be wonderful to do the bees. So he went and spent about, I don't know, a day or two figuring out what you had to do with bees and stuff. And then his mother was a kind of person that, you know, was older, and she knew how to can and stuff like that, right? So she thought that they would share some honey with family members, and it was just, nobody had any idea what we're getting into. Well, there was a couple of things that happened that was bad for George. Was that he was allergic to the bee stings, and every time he got stung, it was worse. It was progressively worse. Okay. So we had my friend, whose husband was a doctor, had given him an EpiPen if he got really sick. But he, you know, doing the bees seemed crazy to me. Oh, the first time he did them, he got stung, but it wasn't that bad. But he got stung, and he had a reaction to it. And the first thing we discovered was that bees make a heck of a lot of honey, and more than we had counted on. All right, and we ended up with tons of honey. We had to go out and get containers of it. We had no idea. It was more honey than we had friends for, kind of stuff, right? So then Norman says, I'll tell you what, I'll sell the honey for you. He says, I'll take a little commission per bottle, and I'll go down there on the end of the road, Lone Jack Road, and I'll sell your honey. And we're going,
what could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong with that? You know, crazy Norman down there selling honey, right? On the side of the road, yes?
With his art.
You know, with his art, yeah. So he'd come back, and it was kind of fun. He sold it, and we got a little pocket change, you know, not a lot of money, but, you know, $20 here, maybe go out to dinner or something like that, right? Probably covered the cost of the bottles anyway, right? And then every once in a while, Norman would go out, and he would just sit down at the end of Lone Jack Road, and he would sell the honey. But then we never saw any money from it. So where's the money? Oh, he said. Oh? What'd you do with the money, Norman? Where's the money, Norman? He said, well, I went out and had a drink, and I'll pay you back. But I needed some money, and there it was, and you know how it goes. So basically, a lot of the Lone Jack enterprises of selling and making money was sort of wistful thinking on our part, because
Norman had better ideas.
Norman pretty much drank the proceeds, but not with the honey, you know. He pretty much did that, right? And but anyway, he ended up, he didn't last long with the new people. No surprise there, right?
I wonder where he is today.
Probably dead. Probably,
Oh.
you know, I'm not trying to be mean, but probably, right? And so that would be my best guess, was he probably didn't make it. So moving right along with the story of Norman and the ranch. So we sold the ranch and Colby got the motorhome, and we moved to Texas. And I'm glad we did. I mean, that was the beginning of a whole nother adventure in our lives. But
and when did you move to Texas?
well, I think in 1988.
Last century.
Yeah, in 88 we moved to Texas, and so anyhow, I'm sitting here finishing up my kitties and thinking about, you know, the motorhome stories, but The thing about a 23-foot motorhome is that you can park it in a street. It's legal. You get anything bigger than that, then it'll fit in a regular parking space. And George and I had given serious thought at one time in our lives, right? Right during COVID, to maybe getting, thinking about maybe doing a little of that if we could figure out a way to broadcast. And I think that after COVID, a lot of people did buy it. My neighbors bought it. A good friend of mine, they bought a big motorhome and discovered my friend Lorraine had never gone camping in her life, and she just absolutely loves it. Okay. So I mean that's and I liked camping, and I liked all this stuff. So all in all, I think I'm not sorry about what we chose to do at all. Sometimes I gotta layer some colors on here, right, like that. Okay, I guess we should finish up and do the eyes and talk about it. But I've never forgot that thing with da 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 da. Your horse is dead. And why anybody would think, I mean, honestly, you guys, how crazy was that? Absolutely crazy. But we never got fined or anything for what we did. Never got caught.
Never got in any kind of trouble?
I tell you, we were lucky to have somebody like Norman that found it a deal to have, to do, for the motorhome, right? So that's that standpoint. I think we lucked out, John.
I think so.
I feel like we did. I think a lot of people couldn't have gotten away with that.
All right, another 16 paintings have been varnished.
Really? John's been varnishing artwork.
Now, for anybody that's out there that is getting a painting, make sure we have your address, because we have a lot of paintings and not a lot of addresses. So keep that in mind. Because I got a feeling if it gets to the end of the year and they haven't been claimed, we'll have an auction. So if we owe you one, you got to claim it.
We can't. We don't have them all done. We're working on them. This is one of those pieces.
Yeah,
so
we're
we
still
don't
working on them. But even if we owe you one, they're not done yet. We still need your address. The first batch went out today, so people should be getting them this weekend and first part of next week. Kind of exciting.
Yep.
And once these cure, we'll get another batch out. So we're shipping them out now. Weather's gotten better, and the country's weather seems to be better. So
yeah, you just can't mail them out any old time, because even if it's nice here in Texas, if it isn't nice somewhere else where you are, we're not going to take a chance with your painting that something happens to it, right?
Yeah, it's a fact, Jack.
So I mean, that's
I was just checking my email here, and I'd like to thank Jules, for a donation that came in during our story time. I will add that to the donation list, and you have a ticket or two in the old fishbowl. Thank you, Miss Jules.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And we'll probably mention it again on Monday.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's just marvelous.
You still look like you have zombie cats sitting there.
I know, it's fun though, right?
I would have to do the eyes first. I just could not.
I just thought I would just annoy everybody and not do it first, John.
Well, you succeeded. You know, it just scary.
Yeah? You think?
It is to me.
You think so? I think so, huh?
Yes.
All right. Fine. Somebody wants eyes. I can tell. I hear it. I hear it. Somebody wants
I'm probably the only one
eyes.
complaining.
Somebody wants eyes. Oh no. Here's the eyes. The eyes. I was gonna do it.
Kim has to go paint now.
Who does?
Kim Carr.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, she's doing that with the bar scene or whatever.
Yeah.
She's got to get that done before the end of the month.
Yeah. What happens then?
She has that art show contest, whatever they call it. She wants to submit it for that. Another art competition.
Okay. That's a good thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of. Okay, and I had another, anyway, here it is. But those are drying and I'll do some more on this. I've got almost done with this, you guys, but all these cats have so many little different colors on their faces. So anyway, John and I were, giving some thought to that, but the days of just being able to go to a drive-in movie and park your motorhome are long gone. You can't do that anymore. Walmart was letting people stay in their parking lot, remember?
Yeah.
But I don't know, some municipalities said they didn't like that, right?
In some cities, they've had to stop it. It could have been during the height of COVID, where everybody was doing it. They may have loosened up the rules again.
Yeah. So I guess I should keep telling stories, but so anyway, we actually gave it some real thought because but it just isn't the same deal as it was when I remember doing it. I feel like I got to do motorhoming at probably some of the best time to do it. You know that, John?
No, I think it's still a good way to travel.
It's still nice. And, the advantage is you've got your own food, your own bed, your own pillow. No one else has ever used your pillow, right?
Yeah.
There's some real pluses to it, I think.
The way the world's getting as far as cruising goes, it's going to be a challenge to do that anymore.
Well, yeah, because when so much has changed. Well, that's the thing. Everything changes. And we was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about life before COVID. And there was a time when things were just slightly different, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys think that. But I think there's definitely was a before COVID. And things were just, it'll be forgotten soon. No one will remember it, right? No one will remember what we're talking about. That just people say, "Oh, COVID," and they'll think you're making it up. But the world was a little bit different. It's not just grocery store prices, but there was definitely, there was just definitely something very different about how the world treated everybody, right? Then when they, like for instance, when I was doing motorhoming, when you did go to a campground, they were very happy to have you. They didn't ask you how old your camper was or any of that. They were just happy to have you in their motorhome, in your motorhome. Now, if it's over 10 years old, a lot of campgrounds won't let you won't let you stay, right? And I think there's a lot of things that are different now than it was before. Can you think of some things that you thought were different, John? That struck you?
I guess mainly the people.
And how do you think the people are different? Well, the people seem to be
meaner. There's no sympathy. There's no compassion. It's all about me. It's me, 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 me. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
I wasn't brought up that way.
Yeah.
Simpler times.
I'm going to dry this real quick before I finish the eyes. Just sorry, you guys. Well, okay, I can tell you kind of a difference back when we were, I had a motorhome. I didn't have to pay to store it, right?
No, because you can leave it on your property.
Yeah, you could leave it on your property. You didn't have to pay to
So you
store
can
it.
still do that in some areas. Where we live, we can't because we live in a,
Because we're living in a subdivision, right?
yeah. But when I lived out in the country, you could easily do that.
Yeah, if you lived in the country, you could store it, right?
Yeah.
Gas was less money.
That's true.
There was a lot of, yeah, there was a big difference in gas prices. That was a big one, right?
Yeah. But if you sit there and really think about it, how could they afford to sell gas for 20 cents? I mean, you think about it. They have to manufacture, they got to make it, they got to ship it, it's got to be distributed. I think it was underpriced from the get-go.
Well, the reason that gas is so
But
much.
they did, they made it a drug. So now we're all hooked on it.
Well, I mean, John, I don't think that's true. It's a, you know, is it
I
a
do.
drug? It's just,
But we had other forms of cars that were being built, but the gas industry won.
well, you remember when everybody bought diesel cars, and then it came out that your diesel cars were then they made it was everybody said, oh, let's buy diesel cars because the gas was cheaper because trucks didn't pay that much, right?
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, that's not true anymore, is it?
No, diesel's a lot more money now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. There's just some things that are, you know, have just changed a lot. Of course, groceries and everything went up. What time is it getting to be, you?
I got 4:04. You got a date tonight?
No, I just wondered what time it was. Well, maybe with you, but I don't know. Do we have a date tonight? I don't know.
Yeah. Simpler times.
Yeah, it kind of was, right?
You didn't have the social media. You didn't know everything that you know now so quickly.
No. You didn't.
You barely knew anything that was going on in your own town, let alone across the world. Now you get live reports.
Yeah, right? Okay, let's couple little highlights and finish up the background and now they're looking at you, aren't they?
They look cute now. They look
Yeah?
like little devil kittens before.
Well, maybe so. I'm going to just play a little bit more with the background and then put the whiskers on and we'll call it a painting, maybe. Just get some of my luminous colors out here. So the genesis of this painting was, for those of you who were not aware of what we had going here, is that back in November, last November, kind of about the middle of November, John and I got this brilliant idea to do a membership drive and encourage people to participate. And if they signed up, that they renewed their membership for a year as a red member, which is on our paintingwithginger.com. If they did that, they got, you know, so many.
Got a 6x8.
It's like 6x8 painting, right? Original painting, which we said would not be used as a tutorial. We said that, right?
Yep. And then purple member would get 8x10.
Yep.
Then if they did 2 years, they get a 9x12, and if you did a 3-year, you got a 12x16. And honestly, we had more people take advantage of this than we thought.
Yeah, and so
Which we do appreciate.
And we appreciate the people that participated. Yes and yes.
Yeah. But we're almost done with the 9x12s and 8x10s, and we got a ton of 6x8s to do.
And we probably won't be doing those on the air, I don't think. Maybe. We might. Well, when we run out of them, we have to, so we probably will, right? I take it back. We probably will.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you probably will.
So, what I've been trying to do is, we have so many paintings to do, but what I'm trying to do for YouTube, when I do these on YouTube, is I've been trying to make it where let's see what this color is up here. If I put a little phthalo blue in that, what would happen if I did this and this?
What are you doing?
I'm mixing a color to see if I can get it. So, actually, this has been kind of, I don't know, this has been, to me, this has been very fun, you know, painting this one. Look at this red.
Well, somebody's going to be happy with it.
Think so?
I would think so.
Well, it's like, they're like, it's like different colors, isn't it?
Well, it is different colors.
You know, you just don't.
It's a big difference from the pastel they just showed.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you took another right turn somewhere. Or left turn, as the case may be.
Yeah.
You did something.
I did. So I'm going to put all these brushes away and get out some pens and then do my, just give this one more dry, and then I'm going to put my Posca puns out and do some whiskers and stuff. But you have a frame? Do you have a little frame, John? And
No,
I'll finish
we're out
up.
of frames. No frames anymore.
I want a frame here.
No,
So,
no. You can't have a frame. You had a frame last week. You think we have a never-ending supply of
yeah,
frames?
so we want
Which one
to
do you want?
get a
The
little
green,
frame going here.
orange,
Yeah.
purple, pink?
What?
Let me see what we got.
Yeah, give me a...
We only have these funny ones for 8 by 10.
I think that we have. Those are the funny colored ones.
Well,
Those
yeah.
are we got, I think probably green or blue would be pretty. Yeah,
Green's not bad.
Green's not bad.
Put that right here for right now.
And you have a white one too, I think, but...
Oh yeah, but this is colorful. Okay. A little competition though.
Yeah.
White, blue? Nope, green it is.
Green it is. We'll put it in a green frame and let you go now finish up with the colors and get the final details on the cat.
Final
Right.
details.
Final details on this. I don't know, sometimes one thing about story time for me is when we're painting stuff is that it gives me the freedom to do a lot of crazy different things that I still think people will like. Because one of the things was when we sold the paintings, it was when they renewed the membership, they're going to get an original painting, but every painting's different. Nobody's getting the same painting. They might get a similar, they might get some different landscapes and that stuff, but they'll all be slightly different.
They'll all be unique.
Yep.
Well, as we wind down another exciting episode of Storytime, we appreciate everybody that came and those that made a donation. We do appreciate that thoroughly.
Oh, absolutely.
We did look at the camera and it has died. So I'll see what I can come up with before we have Ginger back on the air on Monday, see if I can find something we can slap up there.
Yeah.
So we'll be on maybe later again this week. It's only Wednesday, so the odds are in your favor. As soon as we get that first round of shipping done, we'll get another batch ready to go out.
Yeah, so that's
Please share the Storytime adventures with your family and friends, anybody you know or don't know. Trying to get more people to realize that we exist. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It costs you nothing and it helps us. It keeps the YouTube gods happy.
yeah, isn't that true, right?
Seems to.
So we greatly appreciate it that you guys are that you guys hang on there, and I hope you enjoyed the story of Bigfoot.
I did.
Well, yeah, so as we kind of emphasize our little eyes here. There's always something fun about painting. That's why I had fun waiting for the eyes to be last, because it's fun to paint it.
It's fun to torment me, I know.
Yep.
It's just a fringe benefit.
Yep. Fringe benefit of, the fun of, painting these little kittens. And it's all fun, right? And I always have fun painting this stuff and doing it. And I like it in this little frame too, that. Somebody asked us about that, and we buy these. Jerry's does not pay us to tell you. People want to know, so we'll tell you. But we get those from Jerry's Artorama, and because we like them. They don't come in all sizes, but they come in enough sizes.
Apparently they've added to their repertoire. I haven't looked in a while, but yeah, they don't do quite as many as we like. All the sizes, but they're nice.
Yeah.
I like the big museum ones though too. They really make a painting really stand out, as it were.
Yeah, they do, don't they, John? They're good, right? So we've got all of him there, and we got all these here, and I think we got came up under the spot here with something dark. And okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and sign this now. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you really want to, you know, there's an old saying that says, nothing, never, what is it? Never changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Right?
Whoa.
Nothing changes if nothing's changing. So if
Nothing changes if nothing's changing.
Yeah, huh?
If you expect something to change.
So one thing you might want to consider doing is enrolling in our online art school and taking advantage of, this year, take advantage of some personal art coaching. I think you might be surprised at how your journey of painting might change. And we want to welcome back people who've come back to the Academy this year who, you know, said they missed it. And we want to thank you guys for that. And we hope to see you all on Mondays for our regular Monday
A regularly scheduled program.
regular scheduled programming. And in the meantime, I want to congratulate my granddaughter Luna, who just got a kitten.
Thus the reason for a kitten.
And I think maybe she was so excited
Kittens
about
came
it.
into the bean. I go, well, we need to do a kitty pack.
Maybe I need to do a kitten.
So we did a kitten. What can
Yeah,
we say?
so we did a kitten, right? And I did a kitten, and you know what? I'm glad we did a kitten.
Yeah, we're a sucker for
Bring
animals.
this round here like that. Yeah, just round that out just a bit. So this was great fun. Hope you had fun too. Please subscribe to the channel. Love you guys, and we'll be back next time, whenever that is with a new story time.
So we'll see you next time, folks. Bye.